The laughter began beneath a ceiling painted with angels. It moved through the concert hall in soft, poisonous waves. First a single startled sound from the front row, then a cluster of polished voices behind it, then the careful laughter of wealthy people who had spent their entire lives learning when cruelty was socially permitted. Elena Rossi stood at the edge of the stage with her violin held against her ribs. For one suspended second, she could not breathe. The Astor Grand Concert Hall glittered around her like a jewel box. Crystal chandeliers burned above velvet balconies. Gold leaf curled along the walls. Women in couture gowns leaned toward one another behind diamond-covered hands. Men whose names appeared on buildings and campaign checks watched with the mild curiosity of people who believed nothing in the room could truly affect them. At the center of it all stood Celeste Vale. The actress had not raised her voice. She had not needed to. Celeste wore silver silk and a smile bright enough for cameras. One hand rested lightly around a champagne glass as she looked Elena over with theatrical surprise. "I only meant," Celeste said, her tone dripping with false innocence, "that the orchestra usually dresses performers for the stage, not for the audience's sympathy." Several people laughed again. Elena's fingers tightened around the neck of her violin. The black gown she wore had been chosen carefully. It skimmed her curves without apology, its sleeves made of sheer fabric embroidered with tiny dark flowers. She had spent 3 months' rent on it, because tonight was supposed to matter. This concert was supposed to prove that 20 years of practice had not been wasted. Instead, the room had decided that her body was more interesting than her talent. The conductor stared at the floor. The event director pretended to study his notes. No one defended her. Elena swallowed the ache rising in her throat. She would not cry here. She would not give them that. She lifted her chin and looked directly at Celeste. "Fortunately," Elena said, her voice steadier than she felt, "the violin doesn't require the audience to be kind, only quiet." A few heads turned. Celeste's smile hardened. Then Elena stepped away from the stage. She could feel the room watching as she walked toward the side exit. Every step seemed impossibly loud. Her pulse beat against the wood of the violin. She told herself she was leaving by choice, that dignity sometimes meant refusing to perform for people who had already decided not to hear you. She was 3 strides from the door when a man's voice cut through the hall. "Stop the concert." The laughter died instantly. Elena stopped. The voice had come from the private balcony above the orchestra, where a single man sat in a shadowed box guarded by 2 men in black suits. Even before he stood, everyone knew who he was. Matteo De Luca. The name moved through the audience without being spoken. He was not the loudest man in New York. He did not need to be. His power existed in the silence that followed him. Politicians accepted his invitations. Billionaires returned his calls. Men who had built careers pretending organized crime belonged to another century lowered their eyes when he passed. He stepped to the balcony rail. Tall, broad-shouldered, dressed in a black tuxedo that seemed cut from the darkness behind him, Matteo looked down at the hall with an expression so calm it frightened people more than anger would have. His gaze settled on Elena. Not on Celeste, not on the conductor, on Elena. "Miss Rossi," he said. Her heart gave one hard, painful beat. She had never met him. Yet he spoke her name like he had been waiting years to use it. Matteo descended from the balcony. No one moved as he crossed the aisle. The orchestra sat frozen with instruments half raised. Cameras that had been pointed toward celebrities now turned toward him. The event director hurried forward. But one look from Matteo stopped him. Matteo climbed the steps to the stage. He did not touch Elena. He simply stood in front of her, close enough that she could see the faint scar along his jaw and the controlled violence in his dark eyes. "Were you leaving?" he asked. "Yes. Because of her?" Elena glanced at Celeste, who now looked less amused. "Because I won't beg people to listen." Something shifted in Matteo's face. It was not softness. Not yet. It was recognition. You will not have to. He turned toward the audience. No one leaves, he said. The doors at the rear of the hall closed. A ripple of unease passed through the guests. Matteo's voice remained quiet. No one speaks. No one drinks. No one takes another photograph until she finishes playing. Celeste let out a disbelieving laugh. You can't be serious. Matteo looked at her. The change in his expression was nearly invisible, but Celeste went pale. I have never been more serious. Then he turned back to Elena and extended his hand. The gesture was not dramatic. It was worse than dramatic. It was intimate. A man feared by half the city stood waiting for her consent in front of 1,000 people. Elena stared at his hand. Why? She whispered. His eyes held hers. Because I know what happens when people fail to hear you. She should have walked away. Every instinct told her there was danger in accepting anything from Matteo De Luca. But beneath the fear, another feeling moved. Curiosity. She placed her hand in his. His fingers closed around hers with careful strength. The entire hall watched as he led her back to center stage. Matteo stepped away only when she lifted the violin to her shoulder. The conductor raised his baton with shaking fingers. Elena looked out at the audience that had laughed. Then she looked at Matteo. He stood alone beside the stage, his attention fixed entirely on her. She began to play. The first note was low and wounded. The second rose above it. Then the music opened. Elena had chosen Saint-Saëns for the program, but within the first minute, she abandoned the planned piece. She played something else, an unfinished composition she had written during the final months of her mother's life. It carried grief without surrender, loneliness without shame. It was about loving someone who was leaving and continuing to breathe after they were gone. The hall disappeared. There was only the violin beneath her chin, the bow in her hand, and the man watching her, as if the music had reached into a locked place inside him. Matteo did not blink. By the final note, Elena's eyes were wet. So were the conductors. No one applauded immediately. For several seconds, the silence was absolute. Then Matteo lifted one hand and began to clap. The sound echoed through the hall. Others joined. Within moments, the entire audience was on its feet. Elena lowered her violin. She should have felt victorious. Instead, she felt exposed, because Matteo was not applauding like a man impressed by a performance. He was looking at her like a man who had just found something he had once lost. And across the room, Celeste Vale was staring at them both with hatred. Outside the concert hall, rain turned Manhattan into streaks of black and gold. Elena refused the car Matteo offered. She found him waiting beneath the stone awning as guests rushed into limousines and photographers shouted questions from behind barriers. "Miss Rossi," he said, "I take the subway. Not tonight. I've taken it every night for 10 years. Tonight is different. Because you embarrassed a room full of wealthy people on my behalf? Because 3 men who did not attend the concert are waiting near the subway entrance." Elena's irritation vanished. She followed his gaze. Across the street, beneath the red glow of a hotel sign, 3 men stood without umbrellas. One appeared to be looking at his phone. Another watched the concert hall entrance. When Elena turned back, Matteo was already removing his coat. He placed it over her shoulders. The fabric was warm. She stiffened. "I didn't ask for this." "No." "Do you always ignore what women ask for?" "No." "Then listen now. I don't know you. I don't know why you stopped the concert. And I certainly don't know why anyone would be waiting for me." Matteo's expression remained calm. "That is why you are coming with me." That wasn't an answer. It is the only answer that keeps you alive tonight. A black SUV pulled to the curb. Elena looked at the 3 men across the street again. One of them had begun walking toward them. Matteo did not look back. He simply opened the SUV door and waited. The man crossed faster. Matteo's bodyguard shifted beneath his jacket. "Elena, made her decision. She climbed inside. Matteo entered after her. The vehicle moved before the door had fully closed. Through the rain-streaked window, Elena saw the stranger stop at the curb and raise a phone to his ear. "Who are they?" she asked. "I don't know yet." "You expect me to believe that?" "No. I expect you to understand that I intend to find out." The interior of the SUV was quiet, dark leather and tinted glass separating them from the city. Matteo sat opposite her, one hand resting on his knee. He was composed in a way that felt unnatural. Elena removed his coat and placed it between them. "You knew my name." "Yes." "You knew my music." "Yes." "How?" His gaze moved to the violin case on her lap. "I heard you once." "At another concert?" "No." "Where?" He looked out the window. "That answer belongs to another night." Elena almost laughed, but there was nothing humorous in his face. Do all mafia bosses speak in riddles? Only when the truth would frighten someone away. "You think I'm not already frightened?" His eyes returned to hers. "Yes." The honesty unsettled her more than denial would have. "Then let me go home. I will take you there." "And then?" "Then I will place men outside your building." "No." "Two across the street. One in the lobby." "No." "One on the roof." "Absolutely not. You may argue with me after sunrise." "I'm arguing now." The faintest movement touched the corner of his mouth. It was not a smile, but it was close. "You are exactly as I remember." Elena went still. "As you remember?" The SUV turned sharply. Before Matteo could answer, the rear window exploded. Glass burst across the leather. Matteo moved faster than thought. One moment he sat opposite her. The next, his body covered hers, forcing her down as gunfire struck the vehicle. The SUV swerved. Elena heard tires scream, men shouting through hidden earpieces, the violent crack of bullets against armor. Matteo's hand cradled the back of her head. "Stay down." His voice was calm against her ear. A second vehicle struck theirs from the side. The impact threw them together. Elena's shoulder hit the floor. Matteo absorbed most of the force, one arm wrapped around her waist. The intimacy of his body against hers should not have registered in the middle of gunfire, but it did. His breath was warm near her temple. His heart beat hard but steady. The shooting stopped as suddenly as it began. "Clear," the driver called. Matteo did not move immediately. His eyes searched Elena's face. "Are you hurt?" "I don't think so." "Your hand." She looked down. Blood ran across her palm from a shard of glass. Matteo's expression changed. Cold fury replaced control. "It's a cut," she said. He took her wrist carefully. The gentleness of the gesture did not match the man she had seen. Close a concert hall with one command. He pressed a folded handkerchief into her palm. "Drive to the house," he ordered. Elena pulled her hand back. "My apartment is closer. They know where you live." "How?" "They followed you before tonight." She stared at him. "You knew?" "I suspected. And you said nothing." "If I had walked up to you before the concert and told you someone wanted you dead, would you have believed me?" "No." "Then we understand each other." The De Luca residence stood beyond iron gates along the Hudson River, 40 minutes north of Manhattan. It was not a mansion in the bright, theatrical sense. It was older than that. Stone walls rose from the dark landscape, severe and elegant, overlooking black water and distant city lights. Armed guards watched the SUV pass. Elena sat rigidly as they entered a courtyard lined with cypress trees. "This is insane," she whispered. "Yes, you say that as if it's comforting. It is the first thing we have agreed on." Inside, the house was quiet enough to hear the rain against tall windows. A doctor cleaned and bandaged Elena's palm in a library lined with dark wood and thousands of books. Matteo stood by the fireplace throughout the examination, saying nothing. When the doctor left, Elena faced him. "I want the truth. You were targeted." "I know that part," Someone believes you possess something valuable. I possess a violin, a rent-controlled apartment, and approximately $14 in checking until Friday. What violin? She frowned. What? The instrument. Where did you get it? My father gave it to me. When? When I was 16. Where did he get it? I don't know. He repaired instruments. He found it damaged in an estate sale and spent 2 years restoring it. Matteo crossed the room. May I see it? Elena hesitated, then opened the case. The violin rested in worn velvet. Its varnish glowed amber beneath the library lights. Matteo did not touch it. He studied the carved scroll, the edge of the fingerboard, the faded maker's label inside. Then his face went still. What? Elena asked. This instrument belonged to Vittorio Vescari. The name meant nothing to her. Who is that? A man who died 22 years ago. That doesn't explain why someone shot at me. Vescari led one of the oldest criminal families in New York. Before his death, he hid records containing the names of judges, politicians, officers, and businessmen connected to his organization. The records were never found. Elena looked at the violin. You think they're inside this? I think someone else believes they are. That's ridiculous. So is shooting at a concert violinist in Midtown. Yet it happened. She closed the case. My father would have told me. Perhaps he did not know. Or perhaps you're lying. Matteo accepted the accusation without flinching. You should. What? Assume I am lying until I prove otherwise. That answer disarmed her. He walked toward the door. You will stay here tonight. I haven't agreed to that. The road is watched. By whom? By men who missed their first opportunity. Elena stood. And what exactly are you? His gaze darkened. The man who will not allow them a second. She slept badly in a guest room larger than her apartment. At 3 in the morning, Elena woke from a dream filled with gunfire and music. Rain tapped against the windows. She rose, wrapped herself in a robe, and opened the bedroom door. The hallway beyond was empty. Somewhere in the house, a piano note sounded, then another. Not music. A repeated sequence. Elena followed it downstairs. The sound led through a gallery of paintings and into a narrow corridor she did not remember seeing before. At the end stood a partially open door. Warm light spilled across the floor. Elena pushed it wider. The room beyond stole her breath. It was a music room, not decorative, not designed to impress guests. It was used. A grand piano stood beneath tall windows. Cellos rested on stands. Shelves held scores, records, and old concert programs. But the walls belonged to her. Photographs of Elena performing in churches, subway stations, small theaters, and school auditoriums covered one side of the room. Not hundreds of photographs in a grotesque shrine. Something more intimate. Programs from forgotten concerts. Newspaper clippings from reviews no one else remembered. A flyer from the community center, where she had taught free lessons. A photograph of Elena at 25, playing beneath stained glass windows in a church. Her hands began to shake. On the piano lay stacks of handwritten compositions. She moved closer. Each score carried a date. Some went back 7 years. At the top of one page, written in dark ink, were the words, "For the woman who stopped a bullet without knowing it, you should not be in here." Matteo's voice came from the doorway. Elena turned. He stood barefoot, wearing dark trousers and a white shirt open at the collar. Without the jacket and public armor, he looked younger, more dangerous somehow. Who took these photographs? My people. You've been watching me, protecting you, for 7 years? His silence answered. Elena stepped away from the piano. Were you at the church? Yes. The night this photograph was taken? Yes. What happened? Matteo entered the room and closed the door. For once, control seemed to cost him something. I went there to kill a man. Elena stared at him. He moved toward the windows. The man had arranged an attack that killed my younger brother. He used the church because he believed I would not bring violence onto sacred ground. But you did. I intended to. Rain silvered the glass behind him. I stood in the upper gallery with a gun. He was below, speaking to a priest. Then you began playing. Elena remembered the night. A winter charity concert at St. Michael's Church. Half the seats empty. Her mother, still alive, sitting in the front row with a red scarf around her shoulders. What did I play? Bach. Chaconne. In de minor. She inhaled. Matteo continued. I had spent 2 years becoming the kind of man who could kill without hesitation. Then you played, and for 14 minutes, I remembered every person I had been before violence taught me otherwise. His voice remained controlled, but his hand had tightened at his side. When the music ended, the man was gone. You let him escape. Yes, because of me? Because you made me understand that if I killed him there, I would never again enter a church without hearing the shot. Elena looked at the compositions. You wrote all of these? I began the first that night. You're a composer? No, you clearly are. I am a man who could not sleep. She lifted a page. You followed me after that. I learned your name. I learned where you lived. I learned your routines. That is not normal. No, it's frightening. I know. Then why are you saying it like a confession? Because you asked for the truth. She set down the score. Did you interfere in my life? Only when danger came near you. What danger? Your landlord tried to sell your building to a developer who planned to remove the tenants. Elena's eyes narrowed. The sale collapsed. I bought the developer's debt. My teaching program almost lost its funding. The donor reconsidered. A man attacked me outside the subway 2 years ago. He was arrested the next morning. I thought the police found him. They found what I left for them. Elena's stomach turned. You decided you had the right to control things around me. I decided I had the ability to prevent harm. That isn't the same as having the right. No. The immediate agreement made her angrier. You watched my life from a distance and never once asked what I wanted. I wanted nothing from you. That does not make it better. It made it possible. For you to remain untouched by my world. She laughed bitterly. And yet here I am. Matteo looked toward the violin case. Yes, a sound moved beneath the silence. Not music. A distant thud. Matteo's head turned. The lights went out. He crossed the room instantly. Get behind me. Emergency lights flickered red along the floor. Somewhere downstairs, glass shattered. Gunfire erupted. Matteo pulled a pistol from beneath the piano bench. Elena started. You keep guns in music rooms? I keep guns everywhere. He opened a hidden panel in the wall. A narrow passage waited beyond it. Go. What about you? I will follow. No. His eyes flashed. This is not the moment to test me, and this is not the moment to pretend I'm furniture you can move. Another burst of gunfire echoed through the house. Matteo caught her face between both hands. The touch shocked them both. His palms were warm against her cheeks. Listen to me, he said, his voice lower now. There are men inside this house who will use you to destroy me. I can survive bullets. I cannot survive watching them touch you. The words struck with more force than the gunfire. His thumb moved once against her cheek, almost unconsciously. Then he released her. Go. Elena entered the passage. Matteo followed, closing the panel behind them. They moved through darkness until the tunnel opened into an underground garage. 2 guards waited beside an armored car. One was bleeding from the shoulder. East gate, compromised, he said. Vescari men. Matteo guided Elena into the vehicle. As he turned to speak with the guard, Elena saw a red dot slide across his chest. Matteo. She grabbed his arm and pulled. The shot struck the wall. Matteo fired twice toward the dark ramp. A body fell. He shoved Elena behind the armored door as more shots followed. The garage exploded into chaos. One guard collapsed. The other returned fire. Matteo positioned himself between Elena and the ramp. "Stay down." She saw blood, darkening his white shirt. "You're hit. Not badly." He fired again. The attackers retreated. The driver started the vehicle. Matteo climbed inside and slammed the door. Only then did Elena see the bullet had grazed his ribs. Blood spread beneath his hand. "You lied," she said. "About what?" "Being fine." "I said it was not bad. You're bleeding through your shirt." He looked almost impatient with the wound. Elena tore a strip from the lining of her robe and pressed it against his side. Matteo's breath caught, not from pain. Her face was inches from his. His hand closed around her wrist, but he did not remove it. The armored car tore through the underground exit. "You saved me," he said. "I moved you. You saw the laser before my men. I was looking at you." Silence filled the space between them. Matteo's gaze dropped briefly to her mouth. Then he looked away. "Do not do that again." "Save you? Risk yourself for me." "You've apparently been doing it for years." "That is different." "Because you say so?" "Because losing me would make this city safer." "And losing me?" His eyes returned to hers. "Would end it." They reached a safe house before dawn. It occupied the top 3 floors of an unfinished hotel overlooking the East River. Steel shutters covered the windows. Armed men filled the corridors. Elena changed into clothes provided by a housekeeper, while a doctor stitched Matteo's wound. When Elena entered the main room, Matteo stood shirtless near the window. Scars crossed his back and ribs. Some were old and white. Others looked newer. The doctor finished the bandage and left. Elena folded her arms. "You should lie down. You should sleep. I tried that at your first fortress." Matteo pulled on a black shirt. "One of my men betrayed us." "How do you know?" "Only 6 people knew you were at the house." "And all 6 work for you?" "Worked." The cold finality in his voice made her uneasy. "What will happen to him?" "That depends on why he did it." "That isn't what I asked." "No." She moved closer. "Matteo, if I stay here, I need to know what kind of man I am trusting." "You already know." "I know what people say." "They are correct." "That you kill people?" "Yes." The answer was immediate. Elena looked at him for a long moment. "Do you enjoy frightening me?" "No." "Then stop giving me answers designed to do exactly that." His jaw tightened. "You want comfort where there is none. I want honesty with context." He turned toward the river. "I kill men who kill for money, power, or pleasure. I have ordered deaths. I have caused grief. I built an empire from things decent people avoid seeing. And the man in the church? Still alive. Why? Because after hearing you, revenge no longer felt like justice." Elena watched his reflection in the glass. "Who was he?" "Adrian Vescari, Vittoria's son. The family that owned my violin." "Yes, and now they want it back. They believe the records inside it could restore their power." Elena thought of Celeste. She was at the concert. Matteo's eyes shifted. "Yes. Is she connected?" "She is Adrian Vescari's daughter." The pieces locked together. "Celeste Vale isn't her real name." "No." "She mocked me because she knew you were watching." Matteo faced her. "She wanted to see how I would react." "And you shut down the entire concert." "Yes. You gave her exactly what she wanted." His expression darkened. "I gave her confirmation that I matter to you." "Yes." The admission hung between them. Elena's pulse quickened. "How much?" Matteo came toward her slowly. "Enough that every decision I make around you becomes dangerous." "For whom?" "Everyone." He stopped close enough for her to feel the heat of him. His hand lifted. For one breathless moment, Elena thought he would touch her face again. Instead, his fingers closed around the silver clasp of a necklace the housekeeper had given her. He removed a tiny piece of glass caught in the chain. His knuckles brushed her throat. The contact sent warmth down her spine. Matteo felt it. His eyes changed. Then he stepped back. "Sleep," he said. Elena remained where she was. You almost kissed me. No, you almost did something. I almost forgot why restraint matters. The next day, Matteo's men examined the violin. They found no compartment, no hidden documents, no microfilm, nothing. Elena should have felt relief. Instead, the danger intensified. If the Vescari family believed the records existed, evidence would not matter. Matteo ordered her moved again. She refused. I have students. You cannot return to the city. They're expecting me. They will be told you are ill. I'm not disappearing because you find it convenient. I find you alive convenient. You do not own me. The room went quiet. 3 of Matteo's men looked away. Matteo approached until only the desk separated them. No, he said. I do not. Then stop issuing orders as if you do. People trying to kill you do not care about your independence. I care. So do I. Then respect it. His composure cracked. I respected it for 7 years. I watched you walk home alone because you hated taking cars. I watched you enter subway stations while my men followed half a block behind. I watched you perform in rooms where people talked over you, and I did nothing because you wanted your life untouched. Now, there are bullets in my house, and blood on your hands. My blood. Any blood connected to you is mine. The words shocked the room. Matteo seemed to realize what he had said. His voice lowered. You may hate me when this ends. You may never speak to me again. But until I know who wants you and why, you will not leave my protection. Elena's anger trembled against something more vulnerable. You're afraid. Matteo went still. The men in the room suddenly found urgent reasons to leave. When they were alone, Elena stepped around the desk. You're not angry, she said. You're terrified. I am not afraid of Celeste. I didn't say you were. His eyes met hers. Elena placed one hand lightly against his chest. His heartbeat was too fast. I'm not used to fear, he said. Most people are. I have always known what to do with it. And now it has your face. The confession stripped the power from the room. Elena felt him lean into her hand by the smallest degree. She should have stepped away. Instead, she said, You don't know me. I know you give money to the cellist who pretends he does not need help. I know you teach children on Saturdays and never charge the ones whose parents cannot pay. I know you call your father every Sunday at 6. I know you buy one expensive coffee every Friday and feel guilty afterward. That is surveillance, not intimacy. Yes, at least you admit it. I know what you do. I do not know what you think when you cannot sleep. I do not know why you touch the scar near your wrist when you are nervous. I do not know what you wanted to become before the world taught you to settle for survival. His hand covered hers against his chest. That is why I cannot stop wanting more. Elena's breath caught. A phone rang. Matteo released her and answered. His expression turned to stone as he listened. Where? He ended the call. What happened? Elena asked. Your father is missing. The city blurred beyond the armored convoy. Elena sat beside Matteo, fear turning every breath sharp. Her father's apartment had been found open, a lamp broken, blood on the kitchen floor. No body, no message, only a white envelope on the table. Inside was a photograph of Elena performing at St. Michael's Church 7 years earlier. On the back, someone had written, Bring the violin to the place where mercy ruined everything. The church, Elena said. Matteo folded the photograph. It is a trap. My father is there. Possibly. Then we go. I go. She looked at him. He is my father. And you are the reason they took him. Exactly. Matteo's jaw tightened. I will not deliver you to Celeste. You won't have to. I'm going whether you help me or not. The SUV stopped at an intersection. Matteo stared at her for several seconds. Then he raised his phone. Prepare, St. Michael's. No one moves until Miss Rossi and I enter. The church stood abandoned between modern towers, its stone dark with rain. Police had closed it years earlier after structural damage, but candlelight flickered behind the stained glass windows. Elena entered carrying the violin. Matteo walked beside her, armed beneath his coat. His men spread through the shadows. At the center of the church, Elena's father sat, tied to a chair. Blood streaked his forehead. "Papa," he lifted his head. "Elena, no." Celeste stepped from behind the altar. She wore red. No diamonds. No cameras. Without the public smile, she looked colder. "Such devotion," Celeste said. "It seems to be your greatest gift." Matteo's voice echoed through the church. "Release him." Celeste smiled. "You once came here to kill my father. Instead, you heard her music and became sentimental. Your father murdered my brother, and you destroyed my family in return. I spared him. You humiliated him. You took his territory, his allies, his name. Mercy from a powerful man is simply cruelty." Performed slowly. Elena held the violin tighter. "What do you want?" Celeste looked at her. "The instrument. It has nothing inside. Your father knows better." Elena turned toward him. His face crumpled. "I'm sorry." "What is she talking about?" Her father closed his eyes. The violin did belong to Vittorio Viscari, but the records were never hidden inside it. "Where are they?" "In the music." Elena started. "The repair markings," he said. "The measurements beneath the varnish. Vittorio used musical notation as code. I discovered it while restoring the violin. Why didn't you tell me?" "Because your mother and I believed the secret died with him." Celeste walked toward them. "The score." "What score?" Elena asked. "The piece you wrote after your mother died. The melody came from the markings inside the violin. You copied the sequence without understanding it." Elena's stomach dropped. Her unfinished composition, the one she had performed at the concert. Matteo looked at Celeste. "You recorded her performance. Every note. And the sequence unlocks the records." Celeste's smile returned. "Bank accounts, names, judges, your allies, everyone your empire depends on." Matteo's gaze remained cold. "You do not have the final movement." Celeste's eyes narrowed. Elena understood. She had never completed the piece. The final notes existed only in her mind. Celeste raised a gun and pressed it against Elena's father's head. "Then she will finish it now." A piano waited near the altar. Sheet music lay across it. Elena looked at Matteo. His expression revealed nothing, but his eyes told her to wait. She crossed toward the piano. "You want me to play?" "Compose," Celeste said. "Finish what you began." Elena placed the violin beneath her chin. Her bow touched the strings. She began with the melody from the concert. The church filled with grief. Celeste listened. Matteo watched Elena. Halfway through the piece, Elena changed one note. Matteo's eyes sharpened. She changed another. To Celeste, it sounded like variation. To Matteo, who had studied every composition she had ever played, it was a message. "Not yet," Elena continued. Outside, thunder rolled. Her father trembled beneath the gun. At the final passage, Elena slowed. She looked at Matteo. Then, she played 3 sharp notes. "No." The stained glass windows exploded inward. Matteo moved. Gunfire tore through the church. He crossed the space between them and knocked Elena to the floor as bullets shattered the piano. His body covered hers. Celeste fired toward the altar. Matteo's men entered from both sides. Elena heard her father shout. She crawled beneath the smoke, reached the chair, and cut his restraints with broken glass from the violin case. A man appeared behind them. Elena swung the wooden case into his face. He fell. Her father grabbed his gun. Across the church, Matteo fought through 2 attackers. Celeste retreated toward the bell tower. "Elena!" Matteo shouted. Another shooter emerged above them. The rifle aimed at Matteo. Elena raised the fallen gun. She had never fired a weapon. Her hands shook. She pulled the trigger. The shot struck the railing beside the gunman. He flinched. Matteo fired. The man fell. Then Celeste seized Elena from behind. A blade pressed to her throat. Everything stopped. Matteo stood 15 feet away, blood running from a cut above his eye. His gun pointed at Celeste. "Drop it," Celeste said. Matteo did not move. "She dis." His finger loosened. The gun fell to the church floor. Celeste smiled against Elena's hair. The great Matteo De Luca, brought to his knees by a violinist. "Let her go. Kneel." Elena felt Matteo's humiliation before she saw it. His men watched from the shadows, weapons raised but without a clear shot. Matteo slowly lowered himself onto one knee. Celeste's smile widened. "Both?" He placed the second knee on the stone. The most feared man in New York knelt beneath broken angels and falling rain. Not defeated. Choosing. Elena's chest ached. Celeste pressed the blade harder. "Tell her," she said. "Tell her what you did to keep her safe." Matteo's gaze never left Elena. "I destroyed anyone who came near her with harmful intent. Tell her about Daniel Mercer." Elena went cold. Daniel had been a fellow musician, a man she had dated briefly 3 years earlier. He had disappeared from New York after being accused of stealing from the orchestra. Matteo's silence answered. "You framed him," Elena whispered. "He accepted money from the Vescari family to get close to you. You could have told me. I believed removing him was safer." The betrayal struck deeper than she expected. Celeste laughed softly. "He protects by controlling. He loves by imprisoning. Did you really think you were different?" Elena looked at Matteo. "Is that true?" "Yes." "Did you destroy his career?" "Yes." "Without telling me?" "Yes." Pain moved across Matteo's face. "I would do it differently now." "But you did it." "Yes." Celestes blade shifted. "Now you understand him." Elena held Matteo's hase. She did understand. Not forgive. Not yet. But understand. Matteo had spent his life turning fear into control, because control was the only language power had taught him. She softened her knees. Celeste adjusted to hold her upright. That was the opening. Elena drove her heel down on Celeste's foot and threw her weight backward. Both women fell. The knife cut Elena's shoulder. Matteo surged from the floor. Celeste raised the blade again. A gunshot cracked. Celeste froze. Elena's father stood beside the ruined piano, holding the weapon. Celeste collapsed. Matteo reached Elena. He lifted her into his arms as gunfire faded through the church. Blood covered his hands. "Look at me. I'm fine. You're bleeding. So are you." His face broke open with fear. Not the controlled fear he had confessed in the safe house. Something raw. He pressed his forehead to hers. "I thought. I know. I cannot. I know." Then the church trembled. Fire spread from the shattered candles to the old curtains. Matteo lifted Elena higher and carried her through the smoke. Outside, rain poured across the steps. Black SUVs surrounded the church. Men shouted. Her father was taken toward a waiting ambulance. Matteo carried Elena into the storm, his white shirt dark with blood beneath his coat. Cameras flashed from beyond the police line. Reporters shouted his name. For once, Matteo did not hide. He held Elena against his chest and walked past them all. At the hospital, Matteo refused treatment until Elena's shoulder was stitched. He sat beside her bed throughout the night. At dawn, she woke and found him asleep in a chair, one hand still wrapped around hers. The sight hurt. She remembered Daniel, the hidden photographs, the decisions Matteo had made without her consent. She also remembered him kneeling on the church floor. Elena gently pulled her hand away. Matteo woke immediately. "You're leaving," he said. "When the doctor clears me." His face returned to stillness. "I will arrange protection." "No, Elena. No surveillance. No hidden guards. No buying buildings. No deciding what is best for me without asking. The danger is not over. Celeste is dead. Her father is not. Then tell me the danger. Give me choices. Stop turning my life into a room where only you have the key. Matteo looked toward the window. I do not know how. Learn. His gaze returned to her. And if I fail, then you lose me. The words struck him visibly. Elena's voice softened. You asked why I'm different. I'm not. I'm simply the first person who refuses to confuse your fear with love. His expression tightened. I love you. The confession arrived without ceremony. Quiet, devastating. Elena's eyes filled. You don't get to say that and make everything disappear. I know. You hurt people in my name. Yes. You watched me without permission. Yes. You frightened me. I know. She looked at the man who had silenced a concert hall for her and built a secret room around the memory of her music. I love the part of you that listened, she said. I love the man who lowered the gun in the church. I love the man who knelt for me. Matteo closed his eyes. But I cannot love the cage. He rose slowly. What must I do? Give me the choice you never gave me. To leave? Yes. Every instinct in him fought the answer. She saw it. The tightening of his hand. The movement of his jaw. The fear he could not command away. Finally, Matteo stepped back from the bed. You are free. Elena left the hospital that afternoon. No SUV followed. No guard waited outside her apartment. For the first time in 7 years, Matteo De Luca truly disappeared from her life. The silence was unbearable. Weeks passed. The Vescari records were recovered from Elena's score and turned over anonymously to federal investigators. Judges resigned. Companies collapsed. Adrian Vescari vanished before authorities could arrest him. Matteo dismantled parts of his own empire before the records could destroy everyone connected to it. Sold casinos, closed clubs, released men from debts that had bound their families for generations. Newspapers called it a criminal civil war. Elena knew better. He was learning to open the cage. She returned to teaching. She performed again in smaller halls. At night, she wrote music. But every composition returned to the same unresolved phrase. The melody Matteo had begun 7 years earlier. One snowy evening in December, Elena received a package. Inside was a single handwritten score. No surveillance photograph. No expensive gift. No demand. At the top, Matteo had written, I do not know how to finish this without you. Beneath it was an address. St. Michael's Church. Elena almost did not go, but music had always led her toward truths she feared. The church had been restored. Its broken windows had been replaced. Candlelight warmed the stone. The burned piano was gone. At the center of the nave stood Matteo, alone. No guards, no gun beneath his coat. He wore black, but not armor. His expression held none of the certainty that had once made rooms bend around him. Elena walked toward him with her violin. You rebuilt it. I paid for the work. The church belongs to the city. No hidden ownership. No men outside. One driver 3 blocks away. He does not know why I am here. She almost smiled. That sounds difficult for you. It is unbearable. They stood beneath the balcony, where he had once waited to kill a man. What happened to Adrian? Elena asked. He left the country. You let him? I gave the evidence to the authorities. You could have killed him. Yes. Why didn't you? Matteo looked around the church. Because mercy should not ruin everything twice. Elena's throat tightened. He took a folded document from his coat. What is that? A legal statement transferring every photograph, recording, and file connected to you into your possession. Nothing remains in my house or systems. She accepted it. You destroyed the music room? No. Her eyes lifted. I removed everything that belonged to your life. The compositions remain because they belong to mine. That is fair. Matteo exhaled. I have not followed you. I know. I have wanted to. I know. I have driven near your street 4 times and left before reaching it. Elena smiled, despite herself. Progress. For a man like me. Heroic progress. The humor disappeared as quickly as it came. Matteo stepped closer. I do not ask forgiveness for loving you. I ask forgiveness for believing love gave me authority over you. Elena looked at the scar along his jaw. What does love give you? Responsibility. For what? To tell you the truth. To accept your choices. To protect you when you ask, and stand back when you do not. And if I walk away again? His face tightened. I will let you. Even if it destroys you? Yes. She believed him. That was the difference. Elena opened her violin case. I finished the piece. Matteo looked at the instrument. What is it called? The Man Who Lowered the Gun. Something vulnerable moved through his eyes. She raised the violin. Sit. Matteo sat in the front pew. Elena stood where she had played 7 years earlier. She began. The melody was not the same one from the concert hall. That piece had been grief. This was transformation. It began with darkness. Low strings, restrained violence, the rhythm of a man walking toward revenge. Then came the interruption, a single rising phrase. Not salvation. Possibility. The music carried them through the concert hall, the shattered SUV, the hidden room, the church floor, the hospital goodbye. It did not erase what Matteo had done. It changed what he chose to become. When Elena reached the final movement, Matteo lowered his head. A tear fell onto his hand. The world's most feared man made no attempt to hide it. The final note faded beneath the painted angels. Elena lowered the violin. Matteo Rossi. He did not approach until she nodded. Then he crossed the distance between them. His hand lifted toward her face and stopped. May I? Yes. His palm settled against her cheek. The touch was reverent. Elena covered his hand with hers. I cannot promise to become harmless, he said. I don't want harmless. I cannot promise the world around me will ever be simple. I've never needed simple. I can promise that no room, no enemy, and no empire will ever make me ashamed to choose you. Elena's eyes burned. And I can promise not to mistake your darkness for your whole soul. Matteo leaned closer. Their foreheads touched. I have loved you from the first note, he whispered. No, Elena said softly. You needed me from the first note. His breath stilled. Love came later. When? She smiled. When you opened the door and let me leave. Matteo kissed her. Slowly. Not like a conqueror. Like a man asking a question. And waiting through every breath for the answer, Elena gave it freely. Outside, snow began to fall over New York. Months later, the Astor Grand Concert Hall reopened its season with a new program. Elena Rossi was the featured soloist, not because Matteo bought the hall. He had not. Not because he threatened the board. He had not. She stood there because the recording of her interrupted performance had traveled across the world, and millions had heard what the room nearly refused to hear. The hall was full again. Billionaires, politicians, celebrities, ordinary music lovers who had waited in line for hours. Celeste Vale's seat remained empty. Matteo sat in the front row. No private balcony. No guards visible. When Elena entered, the audience rose. She wore a deep blue gown that celebrated every curve without apology. Her father sat beside Matteo, healthy and smiling. Elena lifted the violin. Before beginning, she looked at Matteo. He did not command the room to be silent. He did not need to. The hall quieted for her. Elena began to play. Halfway through the performance, she saw Matteo's hand resting open on the seat between them, as if even from a distance he was offering rather than taking. After the final note, the applause rose like thunder. Elena bowed. Then she walked to the edge of the stage. Matteo stood. Every camera turned toward him. Years earlier, he had walked onto the stage and taken her hand in front of people who had laughed. This time, Elena reached for him. Matteo climbed the steps. She placed his hand against the body of the violin, so he could feel the final vibration fading through the wood. "Do you hear it?" she whispered. "Yes. What does it say?" His eyes held hers. "That I survived long enough to become someone you could choose." Elena smiled. Then she kissed him beneath the chandeliers while the entire hall watched. There was no shame in the room now. No laughter. Only music. And the man who had once ruled New York through fear stood beside the woman who had taught him that devotion was not possession, protection was not control, and love was not the cage built around someone precious. Love was opening the door and trusting that, after everything, she might still choose to stay.